Hello and welcome to this edition of One on One. I'm Paranjoy Guha Thakurta in the studio of Lok Sabha Television here in New Delhi. And in this edition of the program, we're going to look at issues of race, prejudice, stereotyping of people who belong to the northeastern part of India. That's just a geographical entity. There are 7 states, 7 sisters. There's an 8th state, Sikkim. But what we're going to look at is not just stereotyping and prejudice, but we want to look at in this conversation how people from the northeast are projected in popular cinema, in how they are stereotyped in popular culture, and how this is related to our biases and our prejudices. I'm very happy to welcome here to the studio of Lok Sabha Television an academic who has studied this subject in considerable depth and detail. Let me welcome Professor A. Bimal Akoijam to the studio of Lok Sabha Television, Associate Professor, Center for the Study of Social Systems, School of Social Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, where he's been taught for more than 8 years, nearly 9 years. Earlier worked with was a faculty member at the Center for the Study of Developing Societies, and has also had studied at Wadia College in Pune, and then went on to do a master's degree and a PhD from the Department of Psychology at the University of Delhi. And for the benefit of our viewers, Professor Bimal Akoijam is a filmmaker, a film critic, a theatre enthusiast who has directed plays, who's directed documentary films and a feature film as well. Thank you so much, Professor Akoijam, for coming here. Let me start by asking you, what prompted you to write this article in the Hindu, which was published on the 9th of September, with the title Race and Prejudice on Celluloid, and the subtitle that Bollywood's inability to cast an actor from a similar ethnic or cultural group for the role of Mary Kom, MC Mary Kom, speaks of an issue that goes beyond cinema. It's an issue relating to race. Why did you write this article without even seeing the film?
This is primarily because I am referring to the choice of the actor. If I have to see the movie, then I'll be dealing with the plot, the narrative, the cinematography, all kinds of other materials. But my concern is, why is that a person such as Mary Kom, which is pretty well known in the country, as almost an icon,
boxing champion, the
world champion, Olympic bronze medalist, and why would a person who doesn't belong to that kind of an ethnic group would play it? But on the other hand, say for example, my concern is primarily because we keep on saying that we need to break this stereotype of how does an Indian look like. And whenever you look at the people from the northeast, whether it is here in this country or you go abroad in the United States or otherwise, it's always looked upon as people from Southeast Asia. So, and many people have been saying that we need to have this face from the northeast in the media and others, so that people get to know.
This is supposed to reflect the diversity, the heterogeneity of a multicultural society.
Absolutely. In fact, the image that they have in Hindu of Mary Kom and this
Priyanka Chopra.
Yes, this reminds me of this Truly ASA advertisement of Malaysian Airlines. That truly diverse kind of a thing. But you flatten the diversity and then you transport it one image. I think this is one occasions where you have missed the bus.
Okay, 1 minute. You start your article by writing, why was Malaysian-born actress Michelle Yeoh chosen to play Aung San Suu Kyi in the biopic called The Lady, and why was Morgan Freeman chosen to play the role of Nelson Mandela? But Priyanka Chopra, who's a popular actress from Bollywood, why was she chosen to play Mary Kom? And in a country which is supposed to be proud of its diversity, and you're saying let's not pretend to be politically correct, and you give a simple answer that an oriental face is not acceptable to the general public of this country. Are you perhaps exaggerating to make a point?
Not really. I think it is more than exaggerating the point. It is stating a fact. For example, there is another girl who acts in a movie who is a Manipuri, Lin Laishram.
Lin Laishram. She's as the friend of the
very few
character.
Girls you can say from the northeast who have made it into the modeling world. She was in Kingfisher Calendar. She worked in New York and Bombay. She has done a lot of assignments. But important thing is that most of the products which uses Lynn Lifestrom face sales in Southeast Asia, not in Indian market.
And it's interesting, because I recently traveled to Guwahati and Shillong, and I was seeing Mary Com being used to sell everything, from steel rods.
That's the irony. When you sell
whatnot.
Tata Salt, for example, which is a household item, which is everywhere, and is a living legend. Mary Com still plays. It's not like you're not making a movie of a forgotten hero of 1960s like Milkha Singh or something of that kind. It is very much present in the media, in different advertisement, even guest appearance in television shows and so on and so forth. So what I'm saying is that this face, the Oriental face, is never ever accepted as part of how a typical Indian look like. And here is a chance for the Indians as a nation to see that face.
Okay, it's interesting because we could go on to talk about our notions of beauty, or our notions, or say the typical male notion of what is an ideal female form. And here you talk about Konarak and Khajuraho and the so-called hourglass figure. And again, so therefore it is again not, you're stereotyping even in that case of how such depictions of the female form may be acceptable south of the Vindhyas, but maybe north of the Vindhyas.
That's true, because this is a well-known fact among the people who knows cinema and popular culture. The actresses in the south used to have a little plumpy and plump and as compared
buxom,
to
plump, hourglass figures as you call it.
No, hourglass figure I was referring to more like the international what they call it. I think Konak and Khajuraho kind of a figure is only good for nationalist lamentation, or what should I say, or deploying for a nationalist rhetoric. But as a beauty, you don't consider that kind of a woman beautiful anymore. Even in the South, what I've discovered over the years, you must be aware of this, that whether you call it hegemony of the North Indians, you started importing actresses from the North, and you can see their actresses are more or less like the Bollywood actresses in some sense, unlike the earlier years. So in that sense, I think what I'm saying is, just as I would like to repeat it again, Lynn Lifestrom face can sell products outside of India, though she's an Indian.
It's interesting because you quote her as saying in your article that I do face discrimination in every audition because they categorize me as quote unquote foreign, quote unquote Asian. So whether it be in movies or in advertising films, they want somebody with fair skin or fairer skin with larger eyes, and this once again,
that's what she said, and she is an experienced model, and she is saying that all the assignments she gets, all the product which uses her face is not for the Indian market, and that typically shows what I meant it. Her face, the Oriental face, is not acceptable to the general population of this country.
And today we have a huge debate happening in the world of advertising. For the first time, the Advertising Standards Council of India is actually saying, these so-called fairness creams which are being sold, which are supposed to be most popular, or most, sort of widely sold cosmetic products and made by some of the biggest multinational corporations in the world, like Unilever, Hindustan Unilever. And these are what are selling. And these are what are being promoted on TV. How to get a fair skin, and for men and for women.
Absolutely, that's what I said. It in a country where you have these fair skin creams, so popular, cannot be a colorblind nation. That's what I think. You don't need to even ask for this experience to the African students in India. I would like to give you an example. For example, this iconic image of Bharat Mata holding the tricolor, the goddess-like figure. Or for that matter, any Hindu goddesses like Saraswati or Lakshmi, for example. For a moment, let's think about changing that image, that popular thing that we have in our mind, with a dark-skinned Dalit woman, for example. How would you feel it?
So you believe that racism is actually very, very deeply ingrained in Indian society?
Yes, and you flick through the matrimonial columns in newspaper, this fair skin.
That's right.
Convent educated.
Wanted wife with wheatish complexion.
The wheatish is not
it's a little
that, what in the West they would probably call you brown.
But you don't say what kind of wheat, maida, atta, or what kind of wheat.
So
Anyway.
that's-
No, but let me go back to a point which I asked, and you did not answer my question, so I'm repeating the question. Why did you choose to write an article about the manner in which an actor was cast to play a role in Mary Kom without seeing the film?
That's what I said. It's a casting. You can see it in a twofold manners. First of all, I said, if I see the movie per se, then my criticism will go on in terms of the cinematography, the editing, the sound design, the music, the acting, the plot, the narrative tension which is being developed.
Or how Priyanka Chopra has depicted.
Or she has acting, her acting talent and so on and so forth. I'm not interested at that level at the moment. I'm looking at the very implicit meaning that a product will not be sold with an oriental face is what I'm raising it fundamentally. That's why I write it. It doesn't matter whether I've seen it or not, as long as this fundamental question is the one I want to address at this moment.
Will you be at some point of time seeing the film?
Absolutely, I'll see it. The only thing that I don't want to do is that I don't want to contribute money to some people who seems to have done this appropriation for their own.
The producers of the film.
Yeah. I mean, they are very clear. If whatever I've read in the review of the paper, it's not so much about telling Mary Kom's story. There are so many factual incoherence in the story, it seems.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's discuss some of these issues. The story and what is there in the reality. And then let's extend this further.
I don't want to comment precisely because I have not seen the movie, but I have seen the reviews, quite a lot of them.
Right, sure.
And they said that there is a disjunction between, for example, where did her husband and she met? One Times of India says it's in Delhi, but the story shows something like a street fight or something, that kind of thing.
All right, sure. Let's talk about some of these issues. Let's also look at the whole ethics or otherwise of a so-called work of fiction, which is supposed to be based on fact, and that to a living human being. And I'm tempted to draw analogies with the film that Shekhar Kapoor made, which was produced by Sandeep Singh Bedi, also known as Bobby Bedi, called Bandit Queen, at a time when Poolan Devi was alive, and she's of course no more with us. But let's look at some of these issues, and let's look at the story of Mary Kom being packaged for a wide audience. Her rags to riches story, and what you say, the irony that the ordeal that Mary Kom herself experienced are in a sense stereotyped and propagated in Bollywood. Let's discuss this issue. I take a break in our program, so I'm going to come back to you. We are looking at issues relating to race, prejudice, stereotyping of the people from the northeastern part of India. We'll be back with you in a short while from now. Stay with us. Welcome back to our discussion on race, prejudice and stereotyping of the people of northeastern India in popular culture. With me here in the studio of Lok Sabha Television, I'm happy to have A. Bimol Akoijan, who is Associate Professor at the School of Social Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University, theatre enthusiast, filmmaker, film critic, directed a play at the National School of Drama on Sadat Hasan Manto's Azadi Ki Khamoshiyan in 2002. Professor Akoijan, you have pointed out that at one level, the story of Mary Kom, her journey is that stuff that popular cinema is made of, rags to riches, overcoming prejudices, not just because she's a woman, but that she continues to be a sporting champion after she becomes a mother, and her fighting not one but a series of obstacles which prevent people from her social, cultural, and economic background to move up or move up the social, cultural, economic hierarchy. But then you go on to say that what is ironical in your article in The Hindu is that the ordeal Ms. Mary Kom has gone through in life includes her struggle against those very same stereotypes and prejudices which are propagated in Bollywood, and yet the makers of the film, according to you, want to tell you a story by reaffirming and reproducing the same stereotypes and their rationales. Kindly explain this.
It's something like, take it for example, you know, in the advertisement of the movie, you see, I've seen it, and if you have seen the movie, there's a scene where it's seemingly she said, "I'm an Indian, and are you discriminating me because I'm a Manipuri? You know, India is in my heart," kind of thing. What makes her think that she is discriminated? On what basis? Is it because she's a boxer? Is it because she's a woman? Or is it because of her look? It is this particular look which is exactly what is not been able to be acceptable to the general people, who think that these guys looks like Chinese or often mistaken as a Chinese and so on and so forth. It is this particular look which is not part of the typical Indian, and it is true that she has gone through some of these experiences of being questioned whether she is an Indian or not, or whether she is Chinese or that kind of a thing. And it is this particular humiliation in this country because she has a very different look which is different from the typical Indian look, so to speak. And the producers of these movies are saying that your kind of a look will not sell the movie. And this whole theory of you know, star is needed, one reason they give it, and actor is needed kind of thing. But it is absolutely unacceptable argument, because not every movie is made with big stars to begin with.
And even films which
and big stars don't become big star before they were into the movie.
No, 1 minute. On this issue of stars and popular culture, you are again drawing an analogy with Michelle Yeoh. She was born in Malaysia, but she plays a Myanmar or a Burmese popular leader, Aung San Suu Kyi. You talk about Morgan Freeman and playing the role of Nelson Mandela in Invictus. How are they related? How are you drawing these analogies?
No, that's what I'm saying. In some way, I have also written, for example, in let's take it for example backward and see this very popular statement called Southeast Asia begins from India's northeast. This particular remark, and I have written in that article that it means that it is talking about an entity which is political, geographically speaking, or part of the geopolitical entity called India, but racially and culturally, which is part of Southeast Asia.
Yet you know, and anybody knows that the Northeast is just a geographical entity, because in terms of diversity, cultural, linguistic.
I wouldn't say that it is only a geographical expression. It is also a cultural expression. That is exactly what I meant it, as different from the rest of the country. I have quoted Yogendra Yadav's statement, and this official statement of Southeast Asia begins from India's northeast sort of thing. It is a racially and culturally marked out from the rest of the country. Now, if this country wants to represent its diversity, and here is a story of one of the stars' daughter of that place, which has come to represent India and become an icon of the nations, and you have missed the opportunity to tell the rest of the country that all Indians do not look like that typical Indian look, like Priyanka Chopra or so on. There are other looks in this country. I mean, you don't have to say that, you know, I would say that if I have to paraphrase the dialogue, it would be something like that: look at my face, and this is also Indian, just as India is in my heart. But you have to hide it by saying that look is a problem. Don't, okay, you may not look
but in a sense, what you're saying is what the producers of Mary Kom did was not very different from what Hollywood has also done.
They have done it before, but that's what I have also mentioned somewhere, because the race discourses, issues are all over there, and therefore, you know, Hollywood is also constrained. They still do it. But lastly, they avoided with the blacks, the African American community.
And everybody says this is all part of the sort of the current political and the geopolitical situation. Once upon a time during the Cold War, everybody who was a villain in Hollywood was supposed to belong to the erstwhile Soviet Union.
They do. If you look at cultural studies, you know, there are a lot of examples where the main characters are white, and you have the secondary characters are black, Hispanics, and so on and so forth. And exactly this movie is doing that. all the other secondary roles. If you compare, people talk about, Gandhi was made by Ben Kingsley, but you forget that one, if I have to argue on that front, Ben Kingsley was half Indian, we all know.
Yes.
He's born as Krishna, and his father is a Gujarati and so on. That's besides the point. But Kasturba, Nehru, Jinnah, all the main characters in the film were played by Indian actors. And I also remember,
even if the director and producer was not Indian.
yes, that's strange. Here is an Indian director, Indian producers making a film on that, and you are saying that your face will not sell it. And commercial angle and so on and so forth. There was a recent published in one of these national dailies saying that if you talk in terms of the investment and return, in the last 10 years, there's only one big star movie which is in that list. It is Munna Bhai. But if you even talk about the big money, that's why I say the motive is not to tell Mary Com's story, but to earn money.
Okay, so you're saying Mary Com just becomes a vehicle.
It's a foil. It's a foil to earn.
A rags to riches story, which you're packaging and selling.
And at a time when Mary Com is already advertised through various products across the television and on the national media when she is alive. It's not a forgotten entity.
Okay.
And you want to sort of
right.
take advantage of that situation, whichever movie you make it on Mary Com. That's what they're doing it.
Before we proceed further on some of the points that you've raised, let me ask you another question. What are your views on the ethics of making a so-called biopic, a biographical picture, a so-called work of fiction where for the sake of form you have a disclaimer saying all the characters or none of the characters living or dead have any resemblance to any person dead or alive. But no, in this case you say no, your film has actually been inspired by the life of a person who's alive, well, living. So
In fact, it is interesting that, if
and here just half a minute more.
Okay.
I want you to draw the analogy of when Shekhar Kapoor and Bobby Bedi was a producer, Shekhar Kapoor the director, to make a film like Bandit Queen, because at that time Phulan Devi was alive. Yes.
Okay, two things very quickly, because before I forget this. Many people have said it, what happened if Farhan Akhtar is playing Milkha Singh and Phulan Devi is an Assamese actress, Seema Biswas is playing.
Yes.
And the point is, let's be honest, when in the ethnical sense, when we broadly use Priyanka versus Mary Com's look and Farhan Akhtar's looks with anyone in the Punjab, how different is these two comparisons?
You tell me.
This is what I'm saying today. You will know that there's a drastic difference between the northeast and the remaining part. That's how it has been marked. People have been mistaken for a Chinese or a Japanese. Are you an Indians? And why do children from northeast shout in the Jantar Mantar that we are Indian, we are Indian? Have you ever seen this happening in any other part of this country?
And the contrary viewpoint is that those who live in the 7 states of northeastern India and the 8th state of Sikkim do not really belong to the quote-unquote mainstream.
Just
yes.
wait. The other point,
Okay,
which
the
I
other
said 2
point.
points. The other one is, if you see, that's why we have
Making
lost an opportunity.
Making a biopic on a real person.
Yeah, that's why I'm going to do that. Just before that, I just wanted to conclude the other first part. The fact remains, that's I'm saying it again, you want these people to be included and people to recognize them as Indians. And here is a unique opportunity for you to tell a story with that kind of a thing. A little bit of sincerity and honesty and a well-crafted movie, I'm pretty sure that you would have made money. You may not have made this kind of a money of a blockbuster kind of a thing, but definitely you would not have lost money. But I think
so this whole logic that is put forth that this is going to be commercially viable only if we have a popular.
But I said, to be honest, you wanted to make money by taking advantage of the fact that Mary Com is a living legend and she is there already in the consciousness of the people through the television, through advertisement and so on. So I'm saying that this whole idea of commercial, I said, accept that. That's your primary thing. Don't tell me that you are trying to tell a real story of Mary Com and so on and so forth. You just wanted to exploit this situation.
2 points here. What was Mary Com's reaction? It seems,
she's part of that.
It seems that she's been very much, she has endorsed everything.
I was a little surprised, to be very honest. She said the story is about her and God forbid people will know what she had said it in her interviews, what the others are saying, whether where she met this chap, her husband, whether there's such a street fight. I don't know. I have left Manipur for a long time, so I don't know. But in my childhood, I don't remember.
All I can say is at the end of the film, when the national anthem is being played, you actually see finally at the concluding credits Mary Com's real pictures.
But that's what the second part. Let me finish the second part.
Yes.
You have mentioned about disclaimer. I asked somebody to send me the disclaimer because I told him before the release of the movie. I said I wouldn't be surprised if they said that a little try to play down the realism of a biopic, which they claim to be authentic. For as the director says as in one of the interviews, to make it more authentic, we have actors from the Northeast and so on and so forth. All this claim of authenticity and to be more realistic, they might abandon by now and said that it is about the spirit of a woman kind of thing in the disclaimer. And what I saw, the disclaimer, which the others sent me, though I haven't seen that movie, they have copied and sent it to me, is saying that it's based on incident of her, and there is something called a creative
interpretation
of those things.
Actual information.
And then you said the most important thing, as any student of psychology will know, there's an admission of a guilt by saying that this doesn't intend to hurt, blah, 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 all kinds of things. Have you ever seen this, any of the biopics?
Now, let me here point out that in the case of Phulan Devi, because I had personally spoken to her on an interview, she was resentful of the way she had been depicted in Bandit Queen by Seema Biswas, by producer Bobby Bedi, by
I'm aware of
director
that.
Shekhar Kapoor. In this case, we do not seem to have seen in the case of Mary Com any resentment or antipathy towards the makers of the film.
In fact, a lot of Northeastern, I would say the 90% support this, and I'm not surprised.
Why?
It's because, see, it's like a woman, if I can give you two examples from the experience of women.
And after that, we'll take a break and continue.
Okay, very quickly. Why is that a woman is not able to talk about marital rape? It's because the idea of sexuality defined by the male, and that she is, she started doubting herself, whether am I being a bad wife or, don't love my husband, why do I feel this kind of thing? It's almost repulsive to think that, her husband is raping her, though she may not find it comfortable. So because of these discursive and institutional structures, she is not able to locate her own experience, which is a known part in feminism. Two, when a woman protests against some injustice done to them by a man, they said that, make him wear bangle as a sign of insult. But they don't realize that they are wearing the same thing. Okay. And thereby meaning that they are inferior and basis for the violence. So it is like that, it's all over the world we know it, how you internalize the hegemonic ideologies of the dominant groups.
Okay. I'm stopping you here.
Okay.
We are a little more than halfway through our conversation. Okay. We take a break here. And I want to explore some of these issues that you've raised in greater detail. How racist is Indian society really? Is caste discrimination and racial discrimination, how similar or how different are they? The concept of race and the idea of India. What does the Constitution say? Let's discuss some of these issues in slightly greater detail. Professor Akoizam, I get back to you. We are looking at stereotyping, prejudices, racial stereotyping, racial prejudice in the context of not just the film Mary Com, but the discrimination that people from northeastern India feel when they are in other parts of the country. Stay with us. We'll be back with you in a short while from now.